talking to you about research skills made easy. Well, my name is Adora, and at the age of 7, I published my first book. It's called Flying Fingers, Master the Tools of Learning Through the Joy of Writing. And more recently, I published a second book. It's called Dancing Fingers, and I co-authored this with my older sister, Adora, and this I just published recently, and that is a book of poetry. So, I really enjoy writing fiction, as you can tell, but I also enjoy doing research, and I do it really every day. In fact, most of you probably do research every day in one form or another. Here are some applications of research. So it's crucial in many aspects of academic, personal, and business life, as you'll see. And research skills truly help you live your life to the fullest. In order to build these life skills, you practice research at school by working on essays, maybe career research projects that you guys are doing. So when you write a paper for school, you need to use research to find information, evidence, and supporting details, as you already know. But you've also probably used research in your own life to determine things like the best kind of shoe to wear, what brand of pet food to buy. So here's a challenge question. What is one way that you used research this month?
Okay, so did you guys hear that question?
Degree things.
Okay, so Khalil, could you tell Adora what we did? Can you kind of just tell her a little bit about how we did that?
Like research Greek gods.
You researched Greek
What did we
gods?
do? Where did we go?
Yeah.
You don't know where we went? Okay, who else remembers? Okay, where did we go?
The library.
To the library?
But what did we use in the library to do our research?
But I used the map.
Oh, Khalil used the book and us used the internet. We used Wikipedia, but we were wondering if there was something a little more reliable or a little bit better, so I guess you'll comment on that later.
Yeah, that's actually, I will get into that a bit. So yeah, you have your research for school for projects, you have business research, so pretty much research is inescapable. You do research every day in some form or another usually. If you are ever eating out and your parents want you to look up a nearby restaurant, that might be, and you read some reviews on it, that might be doing research on the restaurant. If you go into business, then you use research to determine where a customer base is or who exactly is using your product. So you might want to ask yourself, how do you use research? Do you use it to learn about things like food or college or pets even? So today we'll learn how to find research from both print and online sources, so going to the library and finding books, as well as the internet, how to organize and use research effectively, evaluate sources of information, and cite your sources. So step number 1 is finding a topic. You guys already have that. You have to write about careers. And so let's start with researching from print sources, going kind of old school, right? Well, tip number 1, use your local library to find books on the topic, and don't be afraid to ask for help from your librarians. So, going to the library, looking for books, what was the first thing that you did?
Did you ask a question? Because
Yes.
It's a little quiet.
Sorry, I was asking, when you went to the library to look for books on the topic, what was the first thing that you did?
Y'all did research.
Oh, yeah, Cody, could you say that a little louder so I don't know if she can hear or not.
Hit the Google button.
Hit the
Did
Google
you hear
button.
that?
Yep. So maybe heading over to the computers. So when you're looking for information, your local or school library is a great place to start. Now, you might want to head to the computers for 2 reasons. One, you can find stuff on the internet, but another thing is that libraries probably have a computer catalog. So to find books with relevant information, you type in the search term in that catalog. You can get help from librarians. But here's tip number 2, use a catalog when you are headed to the library. Does anyone want to tell me what is the job of the library's computer catalog?
Okay, Robert, you know? Oh.
To find a book.
To find a
Find the
book.
book. Yeah, very good. The catalog is basically a list of all the books in the library. And so if you are looking for a book, then you search it and it finds it. So you can use a catalog if you're looking for one book in particular or a book on a big topic. You can use keywords. Anyone want to tell me what keywords are?
Isaac, go ahead and tell her what keywords are.
They're like the main word that you would use to find a certain type of book or.
Yeah, exactly. They're the key words. So the main keywords is like key words. So yeah. Now you can find keywords from your topic. You can search your books on your topic. So for instance, if your topic is careers, you could search the keyword careers. Or if you are interested in becoming a firefighter, then you could type in firefighting as your keyword. So using keywords, keywords are what you'll want to run your searches on. So here's an activity. With a piece of paper, the writing notebook in front of you, write down 2 keywords for your topic. So careers. Write down 2 keywords that you might use to search for a book on your topic.
Do you guys get what she's asking you to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and think of 2 like words that you relate with career. Maybe careers you want to pursue.
Job.
She's giving you guys some time. So take a minute.
So is anyone done writing down 2 keywords for their topic? Raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand if you'd like to share it.
For extra credit. Oh my gosh, they got shy. They're not extra shy. Oh, Caitlin, thank you.
Thanks.
Teaching?
No.
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't quite.
Okay. Caitlin said, say it again, Caitlin.
Louder.
Teaching.
Teaching. Oh, great. Actually, yeah, that's a keyword that I have to do with my career too. I want to become a teacher as well. So definitely keywords can be very helpful when it comes to running a catalog search. So you'll want to think about the career that you're interested in pursuing. Think of some keywords that have to do with that and type in search. So it's pretty straightforward. Looking for books on a topic. Could also include related words. So for example, if you were writing about threatened polar bears, then some related words would be global warming, wilderness, and threatened or endangered animals. Now, you can also just go to the shelves and browse in the right section for relevant books. So once you've found a book with useful information, you should check out the bibliography for other relevant works. Does anyone want to guess what is a bibliography?
Hey, Robert, what's a bibliography?
It's a story about yourself.
Biography. That's an autobiography. Oh, it's a biography. That's an autobiography.
Actually, that is an autobiography. A story about yourself would be an autobiography.
It's a story about somebody else.
No.
That is a biography. And actually, I heard a funny quote. It was, you shouldn't write an autobiography until you're dead, or something like that, which is, because autobiographies are written by yourself, you can write when you're dead, so that's why it's supposed to be funny. Anyway, a bibliography has nothing to do with autobiographies or biographies. A bibliography actually might be at the end of one. So a bibliography is a list of sources. So let's say you are reading a book. If you're reading a book about the landforms of South America, then the bibliography would be the list of sources that the author consulted. So it might be some other books, it might be some websites. And the reason the list of sources is important is why? And the idea is, why do we even need to have a list of sources?
Oops, sorry guys. Why do you need a list of sources? Find a specific thing.
Define a
Define
specific.
a specific thing.
That might be one, but also think, if I just go to a website and I look at the information here and I copy something and I put it in my book and I don't mention their name at all, what would that be called? Plagiarism. Yeah, exactly. So the list of sources helps you avoid plagiarism. It tells all the sources that you listed, and that is called a bibliography. Now here's an example. This book is super heavy, and it is called Middle East. So it has all this stuff about the Middle East and lots of words I can't pronounce. Anyway, you can find the bibliography by going usually to the back of the book. It might have further reading, and it also might have acknowledgments. So that's something to look out for. And the reason that you sometimes want to go to this back of the book is because that further reading, those acknowledgments might include other books that would be handy for your topic. Using an index. What does an index do?
Find a specific word.
Yeah, it tells you where to find specific words. So for instance, in this index, if I want to learn more about Abgar the Fifth, King of Edessa, then I know that I go to page 296. Why I want to know about Abgar the Fifth is up for discussion, but anyway, an index can be very helpful if you're looking for a specific topic. Now, some information on books, as you probably already know, it's nonfiction to fiction or fiction. You can look for them. It might be under an author's name. It might be cataloged under the Dewey Decimal System. So knowing how to navigate those can be incredibly helpful. So, in conclusion, or print sources, when you are reading a book, then you can use an index and a bibliography. The bibliography might give you more information about the sources that the author consulted. It could give you some other books that you might want to take a look at. An index is basically where you look if you're not sure where to go. It's kind of your map of the book. And then if you're looking for the book to begin with, use a catalog and use keywords. So now that we have finished up with finding books, it's time to go to researching from online sources. So raise your hand if you would say that you do most of your research online. I see a lot of raised hands. And obviously the internet, it's really easily accessible and you can just go to it whenever, so it provides a really interesting source of research. Now this is something I heard. Did you know that Britney Spears was killed in a car accident? Or that robots were used to win the Spanish-American War of 1898? How many of you think I'm telling the truth? Raise your hand if you believe me. I see a few brave souls raising their hands over there. Well, most of you are saying, no, Adora's making this up. But it has to be true. I found it on the internet. Well, as you may have heard by now, not everything on the internet is true. So if not everything on the internet is true, should we still use the internet for research?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
But we should be careful.
But yeah, exactly. But we should be careful. I think that the internet is kind of like the world. The world has some good places and the world has some bad places. Now, I don't think we've heard humans saying anytime soon, because the world has bad places, we are totally not going to live here. So research is the search for information that allows us to create informed essays, rich stories, winning science projects, and cool blogs and web pages. And we research to discover facts. So for example, Mexican bandit and revolutionary Pancho Villa was born in Durango, Mexico. That's something I found on the internet. Once we have the facts in place, we research more to add detail to our project. So you might have a sentence like Mexican bandit revolutionary Pancho Villa was born in Durango, then you can add detail, state of craggy mountains and gorgeous blue skies. This is one of the cool things about research. It allows you to dig deeper. If you follow basic safety rules and learn how to spot tricksters, the internet can provide amazing photographs, source documents such as journal entries and letters, and treasure troves of accurate information. So tip number 3 is, your most basic and important tool is your search engine. Who would like to give me an example of search engine?
Google.
Google, Yahoo, Ask.com, Bing.
I was gonna say I like Bing.
Yeah, Bing is pretty cool. All of them are pretty cool actually. So Google, of course, is the most famous search engine. Other search engines include Yahoo, Bing, Ask.com. But even if you choose the right search engine, it doesn't guarantee that you'll immediately find all of the information that you need. So let's pretend that you're writing a research paper on Paris, France, and the French Revolution. So, going to Google here. I'm not getting any money from Google, that's just what happens to be my computer's homepage. Oops, and that's okay, so I'm going to search Paris. Let's see what I get. I get the Paris map, I get Convention Visitors Office, I get Paris from Wikipedia, I get Paris Information Travel Guide, I get Las Vegas Hotel and Casino, Paris Las Vegas Hotel, and I get Paris Hilton. What do you think is wrong with searching Paris in the Google?
It's not specific enough.
It's not specific enough, exactly. If I'm looking for information on Paris and the French Revolution, I do not want Paris Hilton in there. Actually, I probably wouldn't want Paris Hilton in there anyway, but if you are searching for something fairly specific, then give it a specific search. Narrow your search down to Paris. You might do Paris, France, cut out the Paris Hotel and Casino and cut out Paris Hilton, and then maybe Paris French Revolution. Another cool thing that you can do is searching a specific site. So let's say you love pbs.org, the PBS, the television channel. So you can search French Revolution, site pbs.org. If you want to only return results from one site, then you can do site:pbs.org, or if you would like to return results from, let's say, a .edu website like a university, then you could type in site.edu. So that can be a really handy tool. When you're doing a search, if you want to get results from maybe one specific website that you know and trust, then that would be site blah blah. Tip number 5, you can also try searching, guess what, a trusted website such as pbs.org or Britannica Encyclopedia. Some other good websites for research include NPR, National Public Radio, BBC, the British Broadcasting Channel, I think that's what it stands for, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I kind of had to memorize this. Once you find a web page or article that contains information that may be useful to you, it's time to play detective. So a good detective runs background checks on the people involved in a case, and as a researcher, you'll want to do the same. If you find a good web article, type the author's name to a search engine or look on Amazon.com to see if they've written any books about it. Why do you think I want to run background checks on an author?
To see if he's a good author.
To see if it's a good author, very good. I might run background checks on an author to see if they know what they're talking about. Like for instance, if you read an article that I wrote about AP Calculus, you type my name into Google or Amazon, you see that I've not written anything about math and that I actually admit that I am not great at it. So you probably would not want to trust what I say about AP Calculus. So definitely checking if the author is qualified to write on the subject. That means, do they know what they're talking about? So you can try clicking on the author's name, typing the author's name to a search engine and see what comes up. So here's tip number 6, investigate the author. When you have an article in front of you, it looks great, you might want to click on the author, see if they've written anything else on the topic, just to make sure that it's legit. If your author has a common name, let's say Anthony Wright, there are probably millions of people who are named Anthony Wright, then you could type in Anthony Wright plus Mexico if that person's supposed to be an expert on Mexico in the search engine. So if author has a common name, type in their area of expertise next to it. Now, I can't be content to just investigate the author. You should also investigate the website. Why would you want to investigate the website?
See if it's accurate.
Yeah, see if it's accurate. Now, here's another question. When you're going on a website, what are some of the things you look for to make sure it's accurate?
What do we do to make sure that it's accurate?
That nobody can change the information on there, like Wikipedia.
That nobody can change the information on there. That's a very good point. Like for instance, Wikipedia, anybody can edit it. So you might think, okay, if anyone can edit it, it might not necessarily be true. So yeah, definitely having one that is closed permissions, that might be handy. What's another thing you might look for to make sure a website is legit?
Who made it?
Who made it? Yeah, exactly. Let's say you were reading a website about Adora's Talk, that's me, and it was made by the Coalition of People Against Adora's Talk. Now, what might be wrong with a website about me that's made by a group against me?
They lie.
They might lie, yeah. They would probably say stuff like Adora's Talk hates everybody except herself or something like that. It would be biased. It would be leaning in one direction, and it wouldn't be trustworthy. So check out the author, check out the website, see if it's editable, if it can be edited by anyone, and see who made it. Those are definitely some great tips. So some websites are safe bets because they represent organizations that you already know and trust. So for example, pbs.org or the Library of Congress. What are some websites that you already know and trust? Any ideas?
Google.
Google, okay, Google. Yeah, they're usually not evil. What are some other websites?
Ask.com.
Ask.com, okay, so search engines. What about non-search engine websites? What are some websites that you know and trust? other than search engines?
MySpace.
MySpace. Okay, let's talk about from a research perspective. Like MySpace, it might be okay if you're, say, doing research on a friend and when they were born, if they put that information there correctly. But what are some websites that you might go to if you were looking for information, say, on careers?
Google.
That's a search engine. She's talking about, like, like she said, she made an example as pbs.org or something like that. Something in that area. She made what?
Why would you go in there? I don't know.
I don't know. Vicky, you had mentioned pbs.org would be something you can do research because it has that .org. It's kind of a trusted website. Plus, we know that PBS, they do a lot of like educational television. But actually, I'm not really sure where we would start with a career. So I don't know, like any specific career websites.
Yeah, that's true. That is a really good one. Maybe going, like Monster, or going to a website that has all the jobs on it. Like, let's say, if you weren't really sure what kind of job you wanted to get, maybe going to a website that's designed for people looking for jobs, clicking on one of those drop-down lists that shows all those jobs, and like thinking about, oh, which one of these should I be interested in? So that might be a good website to start off with. Yeah, very good. Now here's tip number 8. Websites created by organizations or people that are unfamiliar with you are more questionable. So if you have never heard of people who create this website, if the organization sounds a little sketchy, do some investigative work. So, questions to ask while investigating a website. 1. Is the grammar and punctuation correct? How does grammar and punctuation connect in any way to accuracy?
Because you might spell something wrong and it will give you some completely different.
Well, it's kind of like if they don't care about whether the grammar and punctuation is correct, they might not care about whether the facts are correct. What about, does the information match what you already know? So if you know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, then going to a website that says 2 plus 2 equals 17 might not be your best bet. And so information matching what you already know is an important one to consider. If something stands out to you as being incorrect, as being different from what you already know, that would be the second thing though. Has the website been updated recently? What do you think a website being updated recently has to do with accuracy?
Because people lie nowadays.
They could just make it like a year ago and just not even mess with it anymore.
Yeah.
Because if they don't update it, it's probably been from a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say I am doing research about the 2008 presidential campaign, and I go to a website that was last updated in June 2007. That might not be the greatest place. So being updated recently, especially if you're doing research on something really recent, like the Haiti earthquake or something that happened just today, you would need to go to a website like CNN or NBC, a news website that would have the newest information. What are the organization's goals? What is the organization trying to do? So let's say I am doing research about what dog food would be best for my dog. What might be wrong about going to the IAMS dog food website?
Because they'll say theirs is the best.
Yeah, exactly. Because IAM's goal is to sell you dog food. My goal is to learn which dog food is the best. If I go to a University of Dog Food website, their goal is probably to spread good information about which kind of dog food is the best. So that goal would match closer to mine. Does the website include sources such as a bibliography or footnotes that tells or lets us know where the web authors obtain their information? So what I said earlier about a bibliography, it's not just for books. Websites should have bibliographies too. If there are sources from which information was copied or taken, that needs to be listed because, again, otherwise it will be plagiarism. So here are some questions to ask while investigating a website. Now we are going to put that into action. Let's say we're doing research about an explorer. So I'm going to go to a website called allaboutexplorers.com. And so this is everything you've ever wanted to know about every explorer who ever lived in the North. So I'm heading to Explorers A to Z. Okay, let's take a look at this list. Which explorer do you think I should look at? Yeah.
Dora the Explorer.
Sacagawea. Oh, Dora.
From this list, we have Jacques Cartier, Samuel de Champlain, Christopher Columbus.
That guy De Leon.
Okay, Juan Ponce de Leon. Let's take a look at this. This should be interesting. I don't think anybody's ever said that before. Okay, Juan Ponce de Leon was born on December 3rd, 1460 in Sines, Germany. He became interested in sailing through his cousin, Christopher Columbus, and was also close friends with his neighbor, Vasco da Gama, so it was no surprise that he became a world-famous explorer. In 1493, he accompanied Columbus on a second expedition to the Americas. Due to a disagreement between Ponce de Leon and his cousin, he did not return home but remained in Santo Domingo, which is now known as the Dominican Republic. While there, he contracted a rare disease which caused the loss of his right hand. As a result, De Leon had to learn to type all over again with just his left hand. A rumor had been spreading about gold, so Ponce de Leon set off in search of gold. He sailed in search of those riches to the island of Borinquen, which is now called Puerto Rico. He sought to conquer this island and claim it for Spain. He became poet laureate and official typist of Puerto Rico. In 1513, he was hired by Revlon, a cosmetic company, to search for the Fountain of Youth, a body of water that would enable you to look young forever. Okay, do you believe this article?
No.
No. Okay, yeah. Now the first sign, it probably comes with the poet laureate and official typist of Puerto Rico. And then in 1513, he was hired by Revlon, a cosmetic company. I mean, Revlon has been along for a long time. I don't think quite that long. So yeah, that would be definitely a source. And that's tip number one. Remember, it doesn't match information you already know. I know that Revlon did not exist in 1513. That doesn't match. So there we go. There were a bunch of other clues out there as well. But another thing you can do is, let's say you don't know if this is true or not, but you want to find out. So you might search Juan Ponce de Leon, birthday, date of birth 1474. Let's see when it says he was born here. It said 1460. So you want to match information. If there's some information on one website you're not sure is true, see if it matches up with another website, and that can give you some information. So the About or About Us section of a website can provide some important clues about an organization's goals. So let's head to All About Explorers and see what their About or About Us says. We head to About, then let's see, scrolling down. Because we wanted to make a point about finding useless information, even in a site which looked at first to be fairly well put together, all of the Explorer biographies here are fictional. So there we go. That's what All About Explorers is trying to do. Make a point about finding incorrect info on the web. And so, if you're in doubt, go to the About. That kind of rhymes. So why is it important to understand an organization's goals and researching on the web? What do you think? Well, if you remember the example of the IAMS pet food, then if you're doing research on dog food and you go to the IAMS website, then you know that the IAMS website is trying to sell you pet food. So it's important to understand the organization's goals when you're researching on the web so that you know whether they're trying to do things which goes against your own goals. Now, there are many reasons to create a website you have to think about. People create websites to provide information, sell products or services, to entertain you, to convince you, or sometimes even all of the above. So tip number 9 is domain names such as .org and .com can help us decipher a website's purpose. Here's a little game. Guess the domain suffix. So raise your hand and tell us what the domain suffix stands for. .edu.
Ooh, educational.
Education, yeah. Now, who would use a .edu domain?
No.
These happen to my ultra.
That's so cool.
it might be universities, so .edu might be for a university. What do you think would be the goal of a .edu website?
To help you learn.
To help you learn. Very good. .com.
Commercial.
Commercial. And what is the goal of a .com website usually?
To show products.
Advertise.
Advertise.
To sell products, to advertise in general, and make money. Yes. What about .org?
Original.
Organization. Actually, it's not original, but I can see why you might think that. Okay, so .edu is education, .com is commercial, .org is organization. What about .gov? Oh, and I'm sorry, what is the goal of a .org website?
To organize it.
To organize something.
It might be to organize something, but let's say the Humane Society would have a .org website. UNICEF would have a .org website, I believe. Yeah, so organization, the .org is for non-profit organizations. That means like charities or organizations that don't make money. Yeah, like PBS, exactly, Public Broadcasting Service. .gov.
Government.
Government. And what is the goal of a .gov website?
Like government stuff, like DMV.
Like DMV.
Like you.
I said it.
Yeah, government websites are usually to spread information about the government, public service announcements, 2010 census, DMV, all that. Yeah, that would be government websites. It's a pretty big umbrella. And what about .mil?
Military.
Military, exactly. So what might a .mil website try to do?
Where we at? What?
Ramirez.
For what?
It might try to spread information about the military. It might try to recruit people to join the military. So if you think about when you are going to a .edu website, the goal of that is probably to spread learning. It's an education. It might be a university. A .com website is commercial. It's trying to do ads. It's trying to sell a product. A .org website is an organization. It's usually it might be trying to raise money for the organization. Usually it's a charity or a non-profit. .gov website, government, spread information about the government, public service, all that. .mil, military, might be trying to spread information about the military or recruit people to join the military. So when you're going to a website, it's .edu, .com, .org, .gov, .mil, think, what is their purpose? Does that purpose match mine? Usually you should try going to the website whose purpose matches yours. So for instance, if your purpose is to learn about a topic, maybe go to a .edu website. If they have information on that topic. So you can use, all of these websites are fine, but definitely some of them might match your goals closer than others. So some other ones I didn't mention, .net stands for network. That might be businesses. It's often internet providers, web hosting companies. .biz is a small business website. .info is a resource website. So those are some other ones that you might see. The most common one is probably .com.
Others I like to.
So here are some tips for online research. Number one is narrow your search. Why do we narrow our searches?
To get something specific.
To get something specific, exactly. What about searching trusted websites? Oh, that was kind of obvious because you trust them. But investigating the author and website. Why do we do that?
What do you think?
Make sure it's
Make sure it's real.
To make sure it's real, to make sure the author is an expert on the topic, to make sure they're qualified to write on it. Unfamiliar websites or organizations can be sometimes more questionable. Use domain names to give you clues about content. If it's .com, it's commercial, etc., and you know their goals. So those are some tips for online research. Does anyone else have some tips, some things that they do when they're researching online?
No.
Okay, so those would be a few to keep in mind when you are doing research online then. verifying online information. So it's not enough just to run background checks and investigate the author and everything. You also want to, after you've gathered that, make sure that it's correct, do kind of another check. So like the authors of print content, the authors of online content might be biased in favor of certain individual organizations. What does bias mean? Anybody?
It swings one way.
It swings one way, exactly. Like this little picture of a scale, one scale is weighted down a little more than another. And my sister and I are having an argument, and my mom comes in and says, "Adora, you are so great." Then she would be a little biased. However, it can be easier to create and distribute false content on the web. So when you're reading a book, sure, the information in there might not be true, but it's hard to publish a book. It is really hard. You have to send in a manuscript, you have to get that checked, you have to get that edited. So it's much easier to create a website that has false information. All you have to do is just buy a domain name or even just make a free blog. So you can find lots of false information really on different places on the web, so you need to check for that. So here is evaluating sources of information. So remember, not all sources of information are created equally. When you're evaluating the research that you've done, think about the following criteria: source, timeliness, bias, and purpose. So see how each source helps prove your thesis. If it doesn't help support your point, it's probably not relevant. Make sure the material you found is valid and can be verified in more than one source. So for instance, I found that information on Juan Ponce de Leon on All About Explorers. I cannot find that verified anywhere else, so it's probably not correct. Check that you have a variety of perspectives, so lots of different people giving lots of different ideas, and that will help protect your page from bias. And see that you have material that appeals to logic and not just emotion. In fact, in your research paper, you probably will want it to be logical. So, ask yourself, is the writer qualified to write on the subject? We talked about background checks. Are they an expert, an eyewitness? Timeliness. If it's a current event, make sure the website is updated. Bias. This is probably the most important one. So you can sometimes identify that by looking at domain suffixes. But another example would be if I am going to a blog about computers in classrooms, let's say, and there are advertisements for HP on either side. Last time I said Dell, so now I have to say HP in order to make sure I'm not being biased myself. Okay, so there are ads for HP on either side. And then in this article it says HP computers are the best for any classroom. What might indicate that article is biased?
Because they only state one type of computer.
Yeah, because it only mentions one type of computer. If, in general, if it's saying, this is so great, this is the best, stuff like that, it might be biased. But another thing is it had ads. If it had ads for HP on the side, it might indicate they got money from HP to write that up. So that would be another thing to look for. If a website is being paid or underwritten by a company and then they say that company is so great, we know why. Because they were paid to say that. And so, yeah, look for bias, look to see maybe if the ads relate to the article, and so look for bias and be aware of that organization's website bias. So biased information would be information selected to convince you to accept or support an idea, a person, or a product. And so it may still provide useful information. So for instance, if you go to the White House website, it's probably only going to say good stuff about President Obama, but you might also be able to find some great information about stuff like the president's birthday, or the college he attended, or the names of his cabinet members. So when using the web for research, be sure to get information that represents more than one perspective. Ask yourself about the purpose. And now for organizing and using research, I know that I'm blazing through this kind of quickly. So keeping track of information. When you're at the library, write down the name, the author, maybe the publisher, so that you'll be able to find that easily. When you're creating a bibliographic text card or on your computer, you do want to make notes of all the sources that you use so that when you are creating a list of sources, then you have that all there for you. So you might want to read the general introductory sources first to lay the groundwork for the more technical stuff you'll be reading. Rephrase the source to make sure that you understand it. And when you paraphrase, that's what it's called, when you write so many different words, then make sure that you still cite the source. Citing your sources. So does anyone want to tell me what kind of what type of citing your sources will you be using for this project? you be citing your sources?
By writing?
By writing? Well, specifically the MLA formatting, I believe, is what you're going to be using. So you'll want to be familiar with that. Citing your sources is actually one of the most important parts of the research paper. So firstly, the research, but also citing that research to avoid plagiarism. So citing your source is very important. Plagiarism is using another person's work without giving them credit. And by citing your sources, by sharing where you got that information, you avoid that. So always give your source for quotations, summarized information, paraphrased information. Facts are not common knowledge. So you would not need to cite your source for saying Obama is the President of the United States. Everybody knows that. You would need to cite your source for ideas, including opinions and thoughts about what particular facts mean. So let's say somebody is analyzing something that Obama said. You would need to cite that. Maps, charts, graphs, data, and other visual or statistical information. If you didn't draw it or if you didn't design it or whatever, you need to cite that. So some examples of plagiarism would be like copying someone's report, buying an essay, and you need to avoid all of that, and that's why you cite your sources. So here's a tip. After copying words from a source, put quotation marks around them to indicate that you are quoting a source. So would anyone like to tell me what are some of the careers they're interested in researching?
Sorry, some people are jokesters here.
Oh no, you wouldn't believe it. One time I was speaking actually at Michelle Obama's former high school in Chicago, and the students there, I asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff they typed in. It was really hilarious. And also a little bit embarrassing because I had to skip over some of that. But yeah, it was really funny. So, any careers you'd be interested in researching other than Hitman?
President.
President! Oh, nice. Yeah, that would be an interesting career to research, definitely. You might, for that kind of career, you might want to also research steps that former presidents have taken. So, for instance, going to law school, becoming a lawyer, becoming a representative, becoming a senator, or whatever different presidents have done.
Cool.
Music producer.
Music producer. So, let's say you're researching that career. What are some of the things that you might do? For instance, like going to a catalog. You might also look for, you could look for interviews of music producers and see what they say about that career. That might be something fun to do. Anybody else have careers they think about?
Fireman.
Fireman, okay, great. So definitely there would be a lot of information on that. You could research your own city's fire department. Looking at something from all angles. So you could firstly get a book on the topic, then you could go online and look at interviews of a person in that job. You could read a book about maybe the steps you'd have to take to that or go on the internet. So there are lots of different aspects that you would look at a career from. And any other career suggestions? Chef? I'm sorry?
Professional sport.
A beast.
Professional athlete.
Footwear design.
Okay, you know what? You guys, you keep it. It's the same people with all these jobs they want. Hold on a second. Shh. Okay, well then don't say it. All right. Lara, what did you say you wanted to do? Oh, yeah.
I said footwear design.
Mechanics. Oh, mechanics. They make money.
Oil riggers. Do that really?
What? A commercial artist?
A commercial artist. That's an interesting career.
Acrobat. A circus freak.
UFC.
Yeah, I'm hearing, I am starting to recognize your voice. All right, well, thank you very much for sharing your prospective careers with me. When you guys become mechanics or chefs or commercial artists or circus freaks, I'm sure I will notice you and say hello. Actually, from the looks of you, probably all of you will go, no, I'll be way too offensive, sorry. And I did not mean that. Everyone,
No, it's okay. It was funny.
no, everyone gets mad at me though because I always make these awful, like not really funny jokes that then I realize in the middle of saying them that they're really like offensive and hurtful. So yeah, I need to work on that. But anyway, now it is time for questions and answers. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, you can go ahead and ask them now.
Okay, could you guys raise your hand and I'll call on you so that it goes a little faster? And you guys, Adora, I'm just going to prepare them. Could you ask respectful questions? I know some people still need a little warning. Okay, Khalil, what new question did you have?
I got 2 questions.
Oh, you only get one.
Where are you?
Where am I? Good question. I am in Redmond, Washington State. Redmond is near Seattle. Where am I more specifically? I'm in my house, in the downstairs area of my house. Actually, you can see over here, that's a refrigerator glinting in the distance. No, I'm not in my room. This isn't my room. This is actually, my mother's making funny noises, sorry. This is actually the studio. See, am I zoomed all the way up? Yeah.
Okay. Let's get this outside. Is it sunny in Seattle or Washington?
Oh yeah, it is so sunny. It is actually like kind of warm. Yesterday it showered a little. It rains a lot here, as you may have heard, but it is really nice, really pretty and warm. What about you guys?
Okay.
It's very nice and sunny out here.
No, it is hot.
Okay. Hold on a second, Caitlin. What did you do?
Shut up.
We're not telling you, they're telling their classmates. Okay, Caitlin, can you ask it one more time?
What did you know? What age did you How old were you when you wanted to be an author?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
How old were you when you wanted to be an author?
How old was I when I wanted to be an author? Well, I started writing when I was 4. I started typing up my stories when I was 6, and I published my first book when I was 7. So I guess I wanted to be an author since I started writing, which was 4.
Wow. How come you're not on the news?
She has been on the news.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the news.
Yeah, actually, let's see. I was, if you go to my website, adoraspeechtalk.com, which I should actually share with you guys, then you can find some of the footage from Good Morning America. They showed a clip, they showed a little video clip of me on Oprah, and I think you can find that if you search for it. But,
And on Montel, I remember you being on Montel.
oh yes, Montel Williams. I was on quite a few shows, but let's see. CNN's Young People Who Rock, Montel Williams, Oprah, Good Morning America.
Alright, Robert, do you have a question? And then Lara, then Cody, okay? Okay, Robert.
What's your IQ?
What is my IQ? Actually, I have not taken an IQ test. A lot of people ask me that, but yeah, I haven't taken one.
Can you take one right now?
Okay, no, because we don't have time. Okay, Lara. Oh, Cody. Okay, Lara and then Cody, okay?
How fast can you type?
Oh, how fast can I type? Let me demonstrate. On average, I type out 70 to 110 words per minute. The fastest I ever did was 121. Here, let me do.
Oh my god.
I'll tell you, fingers.
I can't even read that fast enough.
Okay, and I just backspaced that because I realized I made an error when I was talking about an error, which wasn't actually existing. So yeah, anyway, weird stuff. Oops. All right.
You're cool. You're cool.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Cody. Sorry, they're excited because it's the last period of the day. Cody has a question for you.
Who's the cameraman?
Oh, is it like a polycom like ours?
Oh no. It's just I can just control with a remote like that. Yeah.
Just like ours.
What is that?
You told my second period class you had a Facebook.
Oh yes, I do. Facebook.com/Doris speed talk, I guess. If you guys friend me and you play Farmville, please send me some gifts. I know that sounds incredibly nerdy, but yeah, I actually play Farmville. Oh, and if any of you guys are on Twitter, I'm twitter.com/Adora. I hear from my sister that not a whole lot of people use Twitter. Oh,
Okay. I have two. Do we have time for like two
yes,
questions?
sure.
Okay. Alright, sit down. Robert, sit down for a second. Sorry.
Get my favorite.
Oh, she showed it, but she could show it again.